Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Monday, the 28th of April, and we're a game closer to the season ending, thankfully. I'm Derek Clark, of course. I'm joined by Chris Jack this morning. How goes it, Chris?
We're taking these days and these games one at a time right now, aren't we, Derek? I'm all good. How's things?
Yeah, all right on for a Monday, I guess. Plenty to get our teeth stuck into, as there always is over a weekend with regards to Rangers. Before we do that, a quick word for our podcast sponsors. You know the drill. Now, folks, S1 Jobs sponsors the Rangers Review, so thank you to them. If you're looking at in your transfer request, head over to S1 Jobs and upload your CV today. Thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and the surrounding areas. You'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Another in terms of on-field issues, we'll talk about Player of the Year awards, the manager latest as well over the course of the programme. Rangers dropping points at the weekend doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. 2-2 draw with St Mirren. Cyril Dessers and Nico Raskin netting for Rangers, only to be pegged back by the Buddies. And more drop points. Barry Ferguson speaking afterwards was pretty candid, saying that no team fears playing Rangers anymore, and I can't disagree with that. Interestingly, Liam Kelly, the embargoed press conference that was released yesterday, says he's not sure why players are not carrying out instructions from the manager. I think it's quite simple that many of them have mentally checked out and look at the league table, and no surprise to see Rangers so far languishing behind. I think it's only natural that they may be going through the motions until the season's end. Chris, you've seen the game. What do you make of it?
It was probably 90 minutes that summed up quite a lot of this entire season. Rangers not playing at the correct tempo, Rangers not making the right decisions, Rangers missing a couple of chances, getting their goals, but then not being able to defend properly at the other end, playing themselves into trouble on a couple of occasions that they got away with. And it was just a 90 minutes that was not quite up there with the worst that we've seen, because there's been some really bad stuff played over the course of the season, but it felt like it almost summed it up. As you say, a squad that has largely checked out, a squad that's largely not good enough, and it just showed how much work Rangers have to do over the summer. Not impressed. Now, Barry said on Friday, this is the challenge for these 5 games was to go and win them, for these players to try and prove something of a point, whatever that kind of point could be. And 24 hours later, 90 minutes in, and that ambition of 5 wins is burst already. So quite a fitting 90 minutes, as we said right at the top of the show. We're now just ticking these ones off. The Old Firm is obviously that's a different one that carries a wee bit more to it. But the remaining 3, it's just a case of getting through them. And said to Josh on our post-match show, it was a game where Rangers didn't learn anything. Well, you're looking at the squad that was picked, the players that played. What can you, even if Rangers had managed to hold on and they won that game 2-1, what can you really take out of it? He didn't learn anything in terms of a system, didn't learn anything in terms of individuals. So it felt like a bit of a wasted opportunity in so many ways. But that's not the first time I've said that over the course of this rather dreadful season.
Yeah, I've got to admit that I was a bit disappointed seeing the team when it was announced. Bailey Rice got a start, which is good. Hamza Igaman up front. Clinton Enciala started as well, which was good. I wanted to see 1 or 2 more featuring. Again, no sign of Oscar Cortes, no sign of Danilo. It's clear that Barry does not fancy those 2. Finlay Curtis never got on. Don't understand why. Young Aidan McCallion, I know he got the Academy Player of the Year last night. Can we not see him, please, at some point? And these, I know the Celtic game will take care of itself, and I imagine Barry will be going with the tried and tested in that game. But surely the final 3 games of the season should be used to play guys that haven't failed this season, haven't been the go-to guys, if you like. Let's start seeing some of the young players. Let's start seeing Cortes and Danilo. Well, given that Rangers are about to stump up a substantial fee for Oscar Cortes, which is looking a really bad transfer at this moment in time. Danilo, I don't know what he's doing in training, but surely he must be worth getting some game time, Chris.
I think Cortes is probably the bigger issue. I said last week I would like to have seen Danilo get a game, certainly get a start, because he needs minutes. He needs minutes. He needs goals. He needs to show something. These games obviously mean nothing. So even if he was to go and score in 4 successive games, that's not a case of he starts next season as your number 9 just because he's done that. But we need to try and see something from him, because those opportunities have been really hard to come by of late. Cortes, I think, is the big one, as you said there. Rangers in a few weeks will go into a season where they are obliged to pay for him after a couple of loan deals. We've seen nothing to suggest that he is worthy of that fee. We've seen nothing to suggest that he's actually at the required level. There has been small flashes and very, very brief moments to suggest that he has some ability, but the injury record speaks for itself, and having been fit for several weeks now, still can't get in a side that is hugely underperforming domestically. That doesn't bode very well from a Rangers perspective, and I think the fans will rightly ask, well, what level is Cortes at? And if he's not good enough, if Barry doesn't deem him good enough for these matches, why was there such a big fuss made of him last year in terms of committing that fee to him? So the Cortes question is going to continue to come up until he plays and we see him a bit more regularly. But same situation with Danilo. He could go and play the next 4 games, scoring 4 of them, assisting 4 of them, be man in the match in 4 of them. It's still not enough. That's not enough to suggest he's going to be a Rangers player next season. He will be a Rangers player next season. Time will tell if he'll be a good Rangers player next season or not.
Yeah, I don't get it. They can't be impressing in training. I know what Barry said prior to, I think, the St Mirren game, saying he's not just going to chuck in young players if they're not showing that they deserve a place. I wonder if the same applies to those two. I said it on Friday's show, just give the fans something to look forward to, whether that's those two or some of the young boys in the team. They're sick, fed up of watching the same guys just continually failing in Rangers jerseys. So it is, if they're not getting an opportunity now, then they'll never get an opportunity, and they're going to have to be moved on. The issue I have with those two, I mean, Cortes, he's going to be part of Rangers next season unless a team comes in with serious money for him. And who's going to do that? Nobody, I'd imagine. Danilo, we're facing a situation where if he doesn't get game time, he's obviously going to be kicking his heels. He'll I'd imagine, being the age he is, he'll want to move on, Chris. How much do Rangers realistically get for a guy that doesn't play?
That's another big problem for them, heading into a transfer window of so many problems, so many issues that need to be addressed and solved. The Danilo one, it's not the most pressing one, but it's definitely on the list. He's not shown enough over the 2 seasons to suggest that he could be your number 9 next season. In an ideal world, I think that is Hamza Igaman. He's the man that starts with that jersey. I think we'll see Cyril Dessers move on. Now's the right time for him to be sold when he still has some residual value, certainly after a couple of goals in Europe. Danilo, at his age, his wage, his profile, he can't be your number 3 striker. Rangers can't carry a number 3 striker that's going to get 15 games over the course of the season. So he needs to show more to suggest that he could be the number 2 striker. So if you have Igaman as your starter, you've got Danilo as 2, and you're then looking at a more experienced one perhaps as your number 3, something along the lines of Jermaine Defoe. When you think back to that season, that worked well. Who that player is going to be, time will tell, and that's whether Rangers actually go down that road or not. But I think we've seen enough from Igaman to suggest he could be the first choice if you want to compartmentalise it in that way. Is Danilo second choice? I think that's a big call right now. Saw the comment there saying they're out on loan. You can't really have a £6 million guy on decent money heading out on loan to try and prove himself. So it's just there's so many kind of avenues and almost dead ends that you could walk yourself down going through that Danilo situation. But first and foremost, he has to play. We need to see him in these final games. And you think back to when Rangers not quite at their best, because they've never really been great this season. But when it was Danilo and Igaman together, that looked like a fairly promising partnership. I don't think Dessers and Igaman works as a partnership and as a pairing. When Danilo has had his chances of late, he's just looked really short of sharpness. He's looked really short of that kind of goal scoring nous, because he's not playing. If you're not playing, it's clear that those levels are going to drop down. So it's definitely an issue, but it's one of many issues within this group of players.
Yeah, I don't get if he's on the bench, he's ready to play, surely. So I don't understand why he's not getting on. Baffles me, but there you go. Moving on, the Player of the Year Awards took place last night. Now, I've seen the fan base saying it should have been cancelled. Why are we staging these? Every club stages at the Player of the Year Awards, whether the club have had a poor season or not. I actually seen over the weekend Cardiff get relegated, and then they had the Player of the Year Awards later that night, which, to be a fly on the wall in that room, must have been very sombre indeed. But they took place last night, and the awards went to the following. Nico Raskin picked up the Men's Player of the Year Award and also the Players Player Award. The Men's Young Player of the Year went to Hamza Egaman. Goal of the season went to Hamza as well for that goal at Parkhead. And there's a John Gregg CBE Achievement Award, which went to John Suter. Top goal scorer, of course, Cyril Dessers received the Sam English Bowl. What do you make of it, Chris?
Speaking of matches and events that sum up the season, the fact that the only bit of silverware on the stage was the Sky Sports Cup that the women's team have managed to pick up, I think that probably says it all about how the men's team have fared over the course of the season. Also, the women still have a Scottish Cup and a league to go for, so a night to celebrate their endeavours and their achievements over the course of the season, rather than the men's team, because they don't deserve any credit for what they have gone through, or what they've shown over the course of the season. I do get the theory of why is this on the go? Why is this event even taking place? You saw the Hearts one last night. Now they sacked their manager on Saturday night and then have a do on the Sunday night. It's something that clubs just do. You have to book these things far enough in advance. You don't know. Well, perhaps Rangers did know when they booked it, 'cause it was evident for quite some time that it was not going to go well this season. But you don't know, like the Hearts situation, like the Cardiff one that you mentioned. You don't know that you're going to be that bad when you go and book these things. So I understand why people are saying, just bin it. Why is this on? This is not Rangers, but the event, it was always going to take place, and it's not the first season of late where this event has taken place on the back of Rangers being appalling domestically and having won nothing. So I think the award winners, you can't argue with them. No surprise Igaman gets goal of the season for that effort at Parkhead. No surprise that he gets young player. He's head and shoulders in that regard. And I think Nico Raskin is a more than worthy recipient of Players Player and overall Player of the Year. I think he's been the most consistent performer over the course of the season. He has been a guy who has really stepped up. I think he's shown a leadership side to his game this season as well, and not just when he had the armband when James Tavernier wasn't playing. I think overall Nico has really stepped up, and he deserved that. He deserved that recognition. Heading into the summer, we speak about issues and problems that need solved. Ironically, Nico Raskin is a problem in his own right, because he's now at a level. Does he stay? Does he go? Do you try and get another season? Do you try and cash in? in an ideal world, he signs a new contract, he commits himself to Rangers, and he puts more value in himself on the balance sheet, and he then goes and kicks on the pitch. If he doesn't want to sign a new contract, I think there will be a conversation to be had. Or well, do Rangers have to cash in and have to go and move on? If he does, it leaves a lot of work to be done in that midfield, because he's certainly the best of the bunch right now.
Yep, lots of comments coming in just off the back of that. The Player of the Year Awards, it's a hard sell, of course, as Chris rightly says, after an appalling season. I can't recall, I know people say, scrap the Player of the Year Awards. Have Rangers ever scrapped a Player of the Year Awards, Chris, in your knowledge down the years? It's a record-keeping thing as well, of course. And I can't recall a time when they've just been binned. Do you?
I don't think so. I said there was the one also a few years ago where the Union Bears turned up and stormed the front door of it. Not quite at that stage last night. Thankfully, there was no fireworks being let off. Nobody trying to get into the room. But I can't think of one off the top of my head that's been binned just because the people have been that bad.
Yeah, listen, I've got one next week. Bolton are holding theirs, and the fans are thinking it's just that feeling of deflatedness after what has been a season of underachievement. But Chris says,
because you're hosting it.
Well, luckily not. We've got Vernon Kay in. We've got the big guns in. So good luck to Vernon for that one. I'll be sampling the local ale and watching on with interest. But we're not doing a montage. We've done a montage last year of the season, but we're not doing that. So, I can just relax for the night, thankfully. Chris Dyke says, Tierney must have been on with a shot for Player of the Year. I did think that he would have been in, would have taken on one of the awards. I think he and Raskin, probably the best of the lot, Chris, you would say?
I don't think there was a celebration of the season award last night. So Václav went up the road empty-handed. I think in terms of Player of the Year, it was probably between those two. I don't think there's anyone else who has shown the level or been as consistent over the course of the season. And that's not to say that Tierney has been consistent week after week after week. He has had good spells and bad spells, but I think he would have probably been the second choice. But I think Nico was a deserving recipient of those particular awards.
Yep. And there's a point that came in just on Igaman. Before we touch on that, bit less left field, but this just caught my eye. Alan Govan says, anyone remember playing Chesterfield in the Anglo-Scottish Cup? Chesterfield beat Rangers back in the day. Interestingly, used to record a podcast before the Rangers review came on the scene. I spoke to a guy that scored for Chesterfield in that infamous game, if you like, Phil Bonnyman, who was on the books of Rangers, came through, great guy, and he spoke about that game and scoring for the Spyrites, which bring back the Anglo-Scottish Cup. That was a brilliant, I'll say a brilliant tournament. Let us know if you agree with that, folks. But that's a tournament that is no longer with us. Let's talk about Hamza Igaman. Simon says that Igaman was honking at the weekend, and shared by Kane's World. He says, can we talk about Igaman, please? He's been absolutely rotten lately, especially on Saturday. Again, he's been playing out of position, but still constantly giving possession away. He has been poor, Chris, hasn't he? His form sort of nosedived a bit. What do you put that down to?
I think if you pick up on that last point there about constantly giving possession away, that's clearly an area of his game that has to be worked on, and that's why it makes it strange for him to have been used in one of the wider roles or been used slightly deeper, because that's clearly not his strength. He's not at his best when he's been asked to link the play and to make a number of passes. You want Igaman in position to have as many shots on target or at goal as possible, not in a position to make more passes than have shots on target. You need him to be playing in the right areas and in the right way. When he's out wide or he's playing slightly deeper, it's clearly not playing to his strengths. I don't think it's done him. I think it's done him any good. It's maybe maybe knocked his confidence a wee bit, maybe knocked him off his stride a wee bit. Perhaps I think he's fulfilled those roles for the benefit of the team, because we know there's not really a whole host of options at number 10 when that has been required. There's certainly not a whole host of options to play in the wide areas. So he's suffered as a result of circumstances. I think overall it's been a really good campaign. I agree with that point as well. Sometimes trying too hard, trying too much, rather than taking the easier option. He perhaps tries too hard to impress, but overall, it's hard to be critical. Hard to be too critical of his season. No one knew what to expect. No one had any real insight into what level he was at, what level he could potentially be at. So I think he's one of the guys that can certainly take a wee bit of credit from this season. Hopefully he has enjoyed it. Hopefully he's learned a lot from it. Go into the summer, give himself a good break, get himself ready. He's got a big pre-season coming up, and of course he didn't really have that last season. I arrived at the club injured, had to adapt to
mystery surrounding him, Chris, if you remember.
Exactly. It became after a few weeks, it became a theme of where is Hamza Agaman almost. Clement was asked about it every so often. So he's going into next season in a far better place than he came into this season, on and off the pitch. So hopefully we'll see even more improvement in him over the course of next season, because I still believe Rangers have got a real asset on their hands in terms of Agaman.
Yeah, I want to really see him. There's a comment that actually came in where it was great. DJ says a new manager, a new approach should help Igaman fly next season. Hopefully you are right. Just harping back to that Chesterfield game, Robert Robertson says, I went to that game, Derek, another embarrassment. And Will with a point says, Chesterfield scalped us. Was serving in the Royal Navy in Plymouth, got pelters from the English lads that night. I bet you did, Will. Not a good day to be a Rangers fan when they were knocked out of that competition by lowly Chesterfield. This is an interesting point. Before we touch on manager situation and the latest with regards to that, a bit of movement with regards to the bookmakers' odds. Callum raises a point here. He says, are we in the same place or worse than last year, lads? I would say we need to find out what the guys that are coming in, the new owners, have planned for Rangers. But I would argue there's probably a bit more optimism and belief around heading into the summer and beyond, Chris, with what might unfold at Rangers. Given the state of the squads right now, you'd probably argue they're in a worse shape.
That's a tricky one. I think the club as a whole is probably in a better place, just because of a story that we may have touched on over the last couple of weeks or so. I think they are in a better place because of what could unfold. End of last season, said a few times on the show and on the website, I had doubts over Clement, just in terms of the way that season unfolded. Got themselves into a great position and then couldn't see it out. And the end of the season, I wasn't impressed with. Wasn't really overly impressed with how the summer unfolded, and obviously the story since then tells itself. So I would say the squads are very, very similar, because there is just as much work needing done. Myself and Stevie spoke about it on the talking point over the weekend, and I think we probably made this point heading into the transfer window last year. Very few of these players will the fans say he has to stay. I would be really disappointed if he moved on. I think almost every single player has a price on their head. In fact, every single player does. Even someone who has had a good season like Raskin, if the right money came in, you would sell him. Even someone like Igaman, who I've just spoken about, if the right money came in, you would sell him. And that's the guys that are actually assets and that have had good seasons. The rest of them, there's so much room for improvement. There's so much work to be done right across this squad, and that's even before you get to the likes of your Dowells and Davies and Matondo and Cifuentes and the guys that have almost become the forgotten ones. Rangers have got a job on their hands once again, just to shift the deadwood before they can start shifting the squad players, before they can start improving the first team players. There's a lot of work to be done. And the only thing that is giving the fans any sort of optimism heading into next season, and to get back to that question, it is the takeover. It is the fact there's going to be fresh investment. There's going to be fresh voices. There's going to be a new direction at boardroom level. So I think that the situation is not good. Obviously, that is something that does give the fans a wee bit of optimism, and there's probably more optimism now than there was this time last year.
Yeah, another player, sort of the forgotten man, if you like. There was a comment that actually came in. I'm trying for the life of me to find it here. There we go. Bluebells are Blue says, did an article the other day confirming Rabi is coming back. Yeah, this is news coming out from Hanover, where he's currently on loan. Their sporting director, Marcus Mann, said, we are, of course, extremely dissatisfied with how the last few weeks have gone. That's of the season. There will be remaining in Bundesliga 2. Now it's all about finish the season properly. We'll use the players we want for next season in the remaining games. The players who are on loan and out of contract in the summer won't be involved. He's made just 2 starts for Hanover since arriving in the summer on loan in January. So he will be heading back, and Rangers will need to look to move him on unless the new manager likes what he sees. But I can't see it, Chris.
I would be surprised if the new manager likes what he sees, to be honest with you. That's a deal. Yes, people will see that as coming back. Of course, he'll come back. That doesn't mean to say he's going to be part of the Rangers squad next season. I think that ship has long since sailed on Rabi Matondo. He's one of a number of players that Rangers just have to move on. They have to find a buyer for. And you look at the Davies and Dowell situations going down south and being key parts for Birmingham, having a good season, having a successful season. It shouldn't be that difficult to move them on. You then have the Matondo situation, very, very different, going out, clearly not impressive, not had a good end to the campaign. It's going to be harder for Rangers to find a potential buyer. And you think back to last summer, look at the players that left and the fees that Rangers were able to get in for them. I know there was a lot of talk about the fees, and people didn't actually believe it. Even when it was confirmed in the accounts, people didn't actually believe it, and it took it until the AGM for it to be confirmed that total of just a few £100,000 was all that Rangers were able to get in. It's going to be just as difficult this summer, because a lot of these guys, they just have no residual value in this market at all. So that's a problem that Niels Coppin and Kevin Thelwell and the board and the manager, they're going to have to try and address, because there's just so much fat that can be trimmed in terms of bodies and in terms of finances.
Yeah. Let's talk about the manager latest, because over the weekend, Marco Rosa, who has been a name that has been on the list, he's made a bit of a move up the betting odds to favourite with some. Now, he was recently dismissed as head coach of RB Leipzig. We will remember him, of course, folks, when he took his Borussia Dortmund team to Ibrox, and Rangers beat Dortmund in the Europa League in that famous run to Seville. He's previously had positions at Borussia Mönchengladbach, Red Bull Salzburg, where he enjoyed a bit of success winning the Austrian Bundesliga. Red Bull, RB Leipzig, he won the German Cup back in 2023. But was dismissed after a poor run of results at the end of March. Now, when he was initially linked, I know some people were mentioning his name when he initially got sacked, Chris. I just have Philippe Clement's alarm bells ringing in my head with this guy. Now, he might be the right guy for Rangers, who knows? Certainly, you look at his Red Bull connections, I can understand why he would be linked. I'm not sort of falling over myself in excitement at the prospect of this guy taking Rangers.
I think someone of that profile would be a slightly more difficult sell to the Rangers fans, just on the back of Clement. When you think back to when he was appointed, there was a lot to like about what he had done, about what he said, about his track record. There's a lot to suggest that Clement was going to work and should have worked, because he had won those league titles in Belgium. He had won successive league titles. He had built a title-winning squad. He had his success, or relative success, in Europe. he spoke about his track record of developing younger players, and there's also players that moved on from clubs that he'd been involved with, both in Belgium and at Monaco, and players had got big moves. So if you forget what we saw over Clermont over 18 months, you think back to that stage, someone of his profile, there was a good chance that was going to work. Now, of course, it didn't, and I know how that unfolded. Was certainly no use to MD, and I think that Rangers fans will somehow be a bit still stung by that. And as soon as a foreign manager of that profile is linked, they will just think back to Clermont and how that unfolded. So people have asked me for weeks and weeks, who's the new manager going to be? If I knew, trust me, I would tell you, because it would be good to have that particular story. And a lot of people say, who do you fancy? I don't actually know right now. I don't know who my preferred candidate would be. There's also a lot of names doing the rounds. You see these odds from the bookies every week in the list of names that come out. I don't know who the front runner. I think when you see the debate that we see on the channel here, that you see on social media, when you're at games and you speak to people, I don't think there's a front runner for the Rangers fans either. I don't think there's a candidate people saying it should be him. I think when Beale was appointed, it was generally well accepted. People had their doubts, and rightly so, but there wasn't a huge groundswell against him. When Gio was appointed, wasn't a huge groundswell against him. Clermont was always a 50-50 between him and Kevin Muscat. This time, I just think there's no obvious candidate, and there's no candidate that the Rangers fans seem to be getting behind, saying it should be him, because if it is him, this, that, the next thing could happen. So I think that probably sums up the predicament that the Rangers board and also the new owners will face and are facing right now.
Yeah, as you can imagine, it's a topical, big topic of conversation is who is going to be the new Rangers manager. Despicable Me with the point says that's a thing though, Derek. Everyone looks good on paper, however, they all underestimate Scottish football. It needs someone that isn't going to do that because that is the previous managers, how they have failed in charge. Ian with the point, just when you mentioned Muscat, he says, is he a realistic appointment? Are we going to accept that won't happen? For me, he is a top candidate. I've not been keeping track of how he's getting on over there. Again, he'd be all managerial appointments are a risk. I think at the time when it was him and Clermont going for the job, many Rangers fans wanted to see Kevin Muscat given the role. I think his teams play pretty attacking football. Again, he had a spell in Belgium, never quite went to plan, but certainly over in the Far East, he seems to be doing the business. Would you be a fan of Kevin Muscat, Chris? Do you know enough about his football that you'd be on board with that sort of appointment?
I had my doubts 18 months ago, and Clermont was more on the Clermont side of that particular 50-50 than I was on the Muscat ones. I think at that time it felt as if the fans really were split down the middle. So I could edge towards Clermont. Maybe that doesn't say a lot about my judgment, given how it then unfolded. I know he would have been disappointed to miss out at that time. I'm sure if it came back in and that came back up, I'm sure he would still be interested. It's still a job that will hold a certain appeal for a lot of managers. Obviously, it's still a big job. You're still coming into a big football club. You're still having a chance to win domestic silverware, and still having a chance to go and challenge in Europe as well. So I don't think the fact that he missed out last time, he'll say, well then, if you didn't want me then, you're not getting me now. No. I'd be surprised if that was the case, especially heading into, as we mentioned there, such a big summer and a new era, and so much room for improvement. It's actually a good time to be coming in as Rangers manager. A far better time than previous appointments have been. You're walking into a situation that's very different, that's exciting, that's fresh, that has so much room for improvement and potential. So I think the job probably holds more of an appeal now than it did when Clermont got it. So I'm sure Rangers and 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh, they won't have been short of people putting their name forward. Who those names are, we are still endeavouring to try and find out.
Yes, and be sure to make sure you're subscribed to the channel, folks, and also keep your eyes peeled on the social media channels and to the website as well. If there's any development with regards to that, you'll be the first to know. Right, we'll wrap up there. Big thank you to you all for tuning into the programme. As ever, it's much appreciated. Those of you that are Rangers Review Extra members on YouTube, we'll record our weekly Q&A this afternoon. So same time, 2 p.m. So I hope to speak to you all then. If we don't chat again, then enjoy your Monday, whatever you are doing. And we'll be back on tomorrow, 9:30 as ever. Right, folks, speak to you later on. Bye for now.